Hello, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon for those of us joining. Boy, I'm off to a great start. For those of you joining us from other areas of the world, we appreciate you joining. We're going to give folks a minute. We've got a big waiting room, and so participants are coming in. It's so nice to see your faces. And welcome back. I see a number of names that are familiar. Mike Pickering, it's great to see you again, to have you here. Awesome. Hey,
Thank you.
Adam, thanks for joining us today. I know I'm not going to be able to get through everybody that I know on this list, especially as people keep coming in. There we go, Mike. Nice to see your face.
Likewise, Noel. How are you?
I'm great. I got nothing to complain about.
Wouldn't do you any good anyway.
Well, in this world, I tell you what, it is a daily journey, right?
No kidding.
Oh, such wonderful to see all your faces. Jim Brown, there's a name from the past. Hey, Carol. All right, we're going to give people, I'd say, one more minute to join in. And forgive me if I hadn't said a personal hello to you. For those I know, I'm frantically flipping back and forth between the chats and the videos. So, all right, we'll give people until 11:03 and then we will launch in. I think it's going to be a great conversation today. It's here. All right. Behind the scenes with us today, we have Vicki Turley, who is going to be helping produce this. I never ask Vicki to come on camera unless I've prepped her in advance for it. Just so you know, when you reach out, if anyone has technical issues or you're having a challenge seeing the slides, want some follow-up questions, Vicki Turley is the person to go to in the chats. I think it's 11:03, so we'll go ahead and get started here. This meeting is being recorded so that we can make the recording available for everybody who wasn't able to join us today. And afterwards, we'll send out an email with a link to the recording and other resources that may be useful for you. Today's topic is on keeping trust relationships alive. What clients think about how we typically engage after a program is completed or the project has ended, and some tips for how you can engage in a way that really brings value to your clients and to you in ongoing work with them. So as we get started, a little bit of housekeeping here. I mentioned the webinar is being recorded. You will get the links to the recording, the presentation, and additional resources in a follow-up email within 48 hours of this morning. The presentation today is going to be 30 minutes, and then we have an additional 15 minutes for Q&A. I have a few minutes after that on my schedule available, so if we run a little bit long, I'm happy to stay and talk with you afterwards. Anytime throughout the presentation, feel free to submit your questions or comments via the chat. One thing I've seen as we've gotten more and more of these webinars and Zoom meetings under our belt is there's usually a very rich conversation happening in the background. So I encourage you to keep your chats open and engage with each other and with me throughout the presentation. If you're game for it, go ahead and turn the camera on. It's always nice to see the faces of the people who we're engaging with throughout. And then throughout the presentation, we'll be using the features of Zoom, annotating, polling questions, and chatting. And in case any of you are new to these features, don't worry, I'll help walk you through it every time we use a new feature. Most of all, and most importantly, I hope you enjoy this. I'm very excited to be talking with you today. And I think that I hope that you will enjoy the experience as much as I know I will. All right, a little bit of background about us. No need to spend time. Most of you know who we are. The material that I'm presenting to you today comes from 2 out of our 3 books. The Trusted Advisor, which we just released our 20th anniversary edition earlier this year, and the Trusted Advisor Field Book. So these are the two copies that I'll be pulling from primarily today. If you want to dive deeper into the content, feel free to pick up these two books. And wow, I sound like I'm being really salesy. So I'm just going to stop right there and move along. So as we get started today, I'm curious why you decided to join this webinar. There's a lot of information out there and a lot of opportunities for you to learn and engage. So if you'll open up your chat window, it's down at the bottom of your screen, looks like a little, kind of like a little chat thing like this, and just type into that chat one thing that you want to get from this session. Be sure when you type the chat that you have it set to everyone so that we can all see your responses. Great. So Mark wants a bit of a refresher on the trust equation. It's a classic. Oh, hey, Charlie. Charlie Green is here. Nothing like upping the pressure by having the author of the books on the phone. Charlie's looking for new angles and perspective. Ah, good. How to connect in the virtual world. Carol, that's a great one. Hey, Ellis, thank you for joining in. Relying on the Trusted Advisor series and books for practical refreshers on stuff that works well. And, you know, Ellis, what I love about what you just said is so much of this is incredibly simple, and yet it really gets hard for us to put in practice sometimes. So good. A firm-wide culture from Michael Gorman. Excellent. Let's see. Understanding trust in hybrid work environments. Interesting, Jim. I know we'll hit on a little bit of that, but it's just going to hit tangentially. But hopefully we'll be able to scratch some of that itch. Paul just started coaching again. Congrats. And how do you sustain them? The relationships. Good. New techniques, new people, keeping relationships alive. Learn, learn, learn. I'm gonna butcher your name, Bolahan. I'm gonna try that. Thank you for jumping in. Good. So we've got some people thinking about the C-suite, moving back from the pandemic. So I'm seeing a couple of themes in here, right? A lot of it's about refreshing, and refreshing is both kind of relearning the content or refamiliarizing yourself with the content. I think refreshing is also just as much about re-energizing and reinvigorating our willingness and our desire to stay connected with our clients. The other thing I'm seeing is managing relationships in non-traditional situations. So where we have a large matrix organization or trying to get a lot of people from the same organization on the same page working with our client relationships, or dealing with trust in the virtual world, right, where we've been for the last year and a half. So we'll touch a little bit on it. The good news is that if you stay true to the principles of trust building, they will apply in any situation. And then you just need to be a little bit creative about the medium in which you engage and how you use those media to your best advantage. So excellent. All right. So I've got a huge, big bill to fill today. As I said, I'm not sure we'll get to every single thing that you wanted. If you do have questions, put them in the chat as we go through. I'll get to them. If it makes sense to pause and answer a question, I'll do that, or we'll wait until the end and cover off everyone's questions. And if at any time you want to follow up with me personally, I'll make sure that you all have my email address and contact information. Happy to have conversations with you outside this forum. So let's get started. We're going to start with a poll here. Now, I just want to get a sense from you, how often do you engage with your past clients, right? And on the one hand, we've got folks who do it regularly, at least once per quarter, maybe occasionally, probably more than once a year. A lot of us might find ourselves just rarely following up. I'll usually send a follow-up email after the project is complete. And some of us might be sitting there thinking, who am I supposed to be following up with? Right? Once we finish the project, that person's out of our mind entirely. So Vicki, let's go ahead and launch the poll. I'll give you 30 seconds to a minute to put your answers in. Some of you are answering in chat too. No surprise there. Charlie Green is a solid A. Vicki, I can't see our poll results coming in. So when it looks like we've got about 85, 90% of folks, why don't we give them 5 more seconds? All right, let's go ahead and close that poll and show the results, Vicki. Oh, wow. Excellent. So the good news is most of you are following up with your clients, at least right after you finish the project, right? And for a lot of us who grew up in the consulting area, that's kind of a standard practice. We complete a project, we send a nice thank you note to the client, maybe we recap some of the things that we discussed with them, and then we hope that they reach out to us again when they have something else to do. Now, most of you are following up somewhat regularly, right? At least you're continuing that conversation, but it's not as frequent, maybe not as frequent as you want, or maybe not as frequent as you think the client wants you to. And then there are those about a fifth of you, right, who are doing some regular follow-ups. So it's good. We've got a broad range of how often we get in touch with our customers. Now I want to shift the lens, and I'm going to ask you not just how often you follow up, but why you follow up, right? So we're going to use the annotation feature of Zoom. If you push your cursor all the way up to the top of the screen, you'll see a green bar that says you are viewing Noelle Michaelenko's desktop, or you are viewing Noelle Michaelenko's screen. There's a view options button. Click on that view options drop-down box, and you should see something that says annotate. And if you click on the annotate, it's going to bring up this bar across the top. I recommend that you choose stamp. You can pick from 6 different options there, and then just put a stamp on whichever of these. Let me get this out of the way. Okay, whichever of these apply to you. Now, for those of you who have other reasons that cause you to reach out, go ahead and enter those into the chat. Just chat to everyone. It would have been impossible to get every possible reason on one slide. All right. So good. So it looks like a lot of you are kind of falling over on this right-hand side of the page, right? Something triggers you, some external event. Maybe you see a white paper or you see a blog post and you think, oh, that's related to something that was interesting to my client. I'll go ahead and reach out to them about it. Or you might see news about them or about their company, right? A lot of you are down here in the just because I'm thinking of them area. And that's fantastic. We often talk about the value of reaching out to clients with no agenda, just to reach out and say hello and let them know that they're in our thoughts. It's a great way to maintain that personal connection. Now, for those of you who are trying to exit or go to a different screen, you'll have to go back up to this menu and click on the red X button so that you stop annotating when you're ready to stop annotating. I see we have a number of folks out here in regularly planned outreach. That might be something like I've set a trigger in my CRM system, right? I get a notification that I haven't reached out to anyone or I haven't logged contact with anyone in the last 3 months, 6 months, or a year. It could also be something as simple as what our colleague Andrea always loves to do, and she calls it Follow-Up Friday. She sets aside time on her calendar once a month and devotes that just to reaching out to past clients and prospective clients. And I see that a few of you have targeted marketing campaigns. Maybe you're connecting your lists. You're screening and identifying. We have a new product or we have a new offering. And so we're going to reach out to people, shoot them a blast email. Now you'll see I've got these divided kind of on the left side and the right side. The left side of this is more business driven, but internal business driven, right? I'm doing it because it's something that I should do. It's good business practices. On the right side of the screen, these are more personal motivators to reach out and connect with your customers. I'm not making a judgment call about which one is better. I think it's interesting that most of you are falling in on the personal connector side. And that makes sense because you wouldn't be here thinking about trust relationships if you weren't already thinking about trust relationships. See what came in. Yeah, so one other, Arun jumped in and said, personal connection while working with the client is another thing that triggers them. So that's all great. Okay, Vicki, go ahead and clear that annotation. All right. So when we think about following up with our clients, with our past clients, there are kind of two main categories that these follow-ups fall into traditionally, right? It starts off with maybe a sales pitch. And this could be anything from, hey, we've got this new product, want to let you know about it, to, that project went really well. I think we made a lot of traction. We have other things that we can do for you. I know when I was early in my consulting career, I worked with one client for about 5 years, and it became almost a joke because every time they started talking about a new initiative or a new challenge, I would look at them and comically, I mean, I was doing it kind of over emoting. I would say, hey, we can help with that. Right. And it was a nod to recognizing that, of course, everyone's going to say that. You might think, hey, somebody else is purchasing this service or this product from us. It might be worth it for you to take a look at it as well. Or on the other side of the coin, someone else is providing this service to you. We think we can do it. And there are a whole host of reasons why that might make sense. Clearly you've got better data analysis, or you understand more of the organization. So in any of these sales pitch kinds of follow-up, it's rational, it's heavily rational why we're reaching out to the customer. And it generally makes sense, logically, at least to us, that we would be well suited to do the work for them. Maybe some of these ideas or targets come out of your sales planning or your portfolio planning, where you're looking at everything you're doing for somebody else and what can we bring to this customer. Or you're looking at it from a product perspective. We have this great product. Which of our customers might we be able to help with this product? And these are all well-established business practices for growing existing clients. The challenge with taking the sales pitch approach is that while it is very logical and it probably will engage some of your customers, it's a very high self-orientation approach to engaging. And what I mean by high self-orientation, for those who aren't familiar with the trust equation, right? Credibility plus intimacy plus reliability in the numerator drive trust forward. But that trust is detracted from or limited by a high self-orientation, which sits in the denominator. Self-orientation is basically, am I doing it for myself or am I doing it for the other person? So all of these sales pitch approaches are very centered on us. Here's a product that I have that I want to sell. I'm going to go out and tell clients why I'm the best person and they should buy my product. Right? On the other hand, traditional follow-ups fall into the friend pitch, or what I'm calling the friend pitch. And this is really where we're focusing on connecting with the other person, but really more as a friend than as a trusted advisor. It may come in the form of, hey, it's been a while, let's go to dinner together. Or why don't you come join our box at the ball game or at the basketball game, or come to our golf outing and stay in our tent, right? Or it could be very personal. How's the family? How are you doing? And I'm not saying that these are bad things. Again, that personal connection is truly important, right? Some of you might have marketing campaigns where you send out a gift or a card, happy holidays, hey, it's our work anniversary, right? Happy birthday, happy new year. Here's a calendar, or here's a little token of our appreciation. Right? These are all common business practices. The challenge with building relationships with the friend pitch is that it confuses the concept of personal connection with private connections. So when I talk about private things are things about your clients that aren't readily available to the whole world to know. Things like their birthdays, their children's names, where their kids go to school, what they do on their weekends. And while it's often common for us to get to know those private things about our clients as we work together, they're less important than we think in establishing a trusted advisor relationship. Much more important is identifying the personal about them in a business context This means how they're impacted by what's happening at work, how they're impacted by what's going on in the economy, in the environment, right? Talking to somebody about how are you during COVID privately means, have you been sick? Have your friends and relatives been sick? Are you concerned or worried? And those can be good ways to establish connection, create intimacy. From a trusted advisor perspective, though, you can also connect personally without diving into the private. Things like how has this pandemic impacted how you're interacting with your clients, right? What's it doing to your business? Have your goals changed as a result? What changes have happened in your organization that are affecting you? Those are all very personal things to your client, but they're not necessarily private. And so understanding the difference between those two can help us make a deeper personal connection without seeming to be targeting just a social relationship, right? It keeps us founded in the realm of business. And after all, the Godfather had it wrong, right? When he said, it's not personal, it's just business. Everything is business, or everything is personal. So how do we get, or how does this come across to our clients, right? So I've talked a little bit about the motivation internally and how we reach out to clients. What our clients tell us, and this comes from some research that the original co-authors of the Trusted Advisor did. So it might be a little bit dated, but I think it still holds true. It's certainly common in conversations that I have with my clients today. Clients usually say that this traditional type of follow-up leaves them with a bit of a bad taste in their mouth. Either they say the consultants are only interested in selling their solutions, not really in solving our problems, right? It's something that comes from I've got a product, so I'll go out and sell it to you, or I have a service. And it doesn't really matter whether or not that really solves the problem that the client sees, right? Or they may say, we never hear from them unless they're coming in to do a sales pitch. Or when they come and talk to us, they're talking to us about generic issues, things that affect all companies. Now, this sounds a little bit unfair, right? Because the way we build our services and products are based on what companies need. We look at the industry and we solve a bunch of problems that are very similar for clients, and somewhere a light bulb goes on and says, hey, you know, a lot of people are starting to ask for this. We should package it as a service or a product and take it out to our clients. We obviously have their best interests at heart. The difference is in how you share that message with the client. If you're just coming to say, I've got a better mousetrap, you probably have mice because everybody has mice, let me share my better mousetrap. It's a very different conversation to something like, you know, I'd be willing to bet that if you have mice, they're probably chewing up on your electrical cords, and you're probably looking at a really big investment to rewire your house if you don't get this under control, right? That's the beginning of a conversation that's really focused on them and what the impact is for them of having mice. And the last one that clients usually say is it has to do more with that friend pitch, right? We don't need to be romanced. Clients can take themselves out to dinner. They can buy their own tickets to ball games. They can go to their own golf outings. Clients want us to focus on being useful to them, not on being their friends. And that again goes back to our tendency to conflate personal and private, right? We want to be useful. Being useful is more useful than being a friend in a lot of situations. Now, again, this doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to be friends with our clients, or friendly, at least, with our clients. We can't be trusted advisors if we don't care about the other person in the relationship. It doesn't mean they have to like us or we have to like them. It just means that we have to appreciate them and care about what's best for them. So, what do they want from us? Clients want us to continually earn the future business that we want from them. And unfortunately, that usually means more investment on our part, right? So for example, they may say, I want you to make an impact on my business. I want you to really understand how to move the needle for me with what your service does, not just that generic, if you do this, you'll get X% returns, right? And that requires us to have a deeper understanding of them. They want us to do more on spec. They want us to come in with a point of view, with a perspective, having done our homework. We need to invest up front on how our services and capabilities are going to solve their problems or make their results better. They want us to spend time helping them strategize. Now, notice this isn't providing us a strategy. This means collaborating, really rolling our sleeves up and getting in there at the table with them. Help them think through what's going on. Bring all of that perspective that we have from our work with other clients throughout the industry, the research that we do, and inform their own strategy development. Similarly, they want us to lead their thinking. They don't have the perspective and the breadth of visibility into what other companies like them are doing. They can't see all the time the industry trends that we sometimes see even before they start making the news. So they want us to be in there helping them see what path should we be taking as we consider our next move. And in order to do that, they want us to be proactive. Don't just wait for them to bring a problem to us, give us a bunch of data and say, okay, what do you see in this? If we think that they have a problem that we might be able to help them with, it's incumbent on us to step forward and say, we've started to see a lot of this trend in the industry. If we could just talk about a little bit of this, maybe you can provide me information. What are your customers saying about it? What's your data trend look like in this area? Proactively reach out and ask them what they're experiencing in their business. Not like, oh yeah, everything's good, but literally get into some of the data trends. Then we can bring them a better solution, right? Number 6, they want us to actually make time with them to talk about their business. Now, this goes 2 ways. One is related to number 5 about being proactive and getting the information so we can bring them more useful ideas. The other is really just being willing to invest the time. Join them at their offsite meetings, sit in on their business meetings, learn from them, and find the opportunities where they can learn for us. And that takes extra effort. It takes extra investment in time. It takes the willingness to give away some ideas that feels so difficult for those of us who are consultants or coaches or advisors, because that's what we think they pay us to do, right? They often want us to help them see how they can compare to others, either industry-wide trends or even what other clients in that same space are doing. Now, transparency is one of the trust principles that we talk about all the time. And it's a fine line to make sure that when you're sharing industry trends and information about their competitors, obviously you don't want to be giving away anybody else's trade secrets, right? So we talk about transparency in all things except where injurious or illegal, right? They want to know why the competitors are doing what they're doing. So help them understand what's behind the thinking, again, not in a way that gives away any obviously any sensitive information. And finally, they want us to talk with them about what else they should be doing, right? So many of us plateau in our relationships with our clients as being really good experts. We solve tough problems and we help them even frame the problems, reframe the problems so that they really know what their challenges are. The difference from that to being a perspective-based or relationship-based, even a trusted advisor level relationship, is the willingness to talk with them about questions they never even thought to ask. Bring that perspective into them. So these are the 10 things that clients want us to do to continually earn their future business. Now, how do we do this, right? How do you keep the trust relationship alive? And there are really just 3 simple things that you can do, and it all has to do with staying in touch. When you stay in touch and how you stay in touch. So first is be in regular contact. When I say regular contact, I don't mean set your alarm in your calendar so that every 3 months you're sending an email that says, hi, Charlie, I haven't talked to you in 3 months. What's going on? I hope your family's doing well, right? That's just, I mean, that can be done through an email campaign, and there's absolutely nothing personal about it. When I say be in regular contact, it's about two things. One is establishing a consistency of relationship. So even when you're not together with them day in and day out, they know that you're there with them in spirit, right? The worst thing that we can do is go to a client only when we want something, only when we have a sales pitch to make, or we have to ask for that referral. Right? We've probably all been in a situation where, I don't want to send this email because I actually haven't spoken to this person in 6 months, but now I really, really need something. You know, I have a story when I was consulting in the federal space, and we managed all of the major systems for it was at the time a department in Homeland Security, and they were all legacy homegrown systems, right? So we had all the control over all of the data, all of the systems. We knew them. We were literally the only people who could maintain the legacy systems. And I guess I feel like we got a little overly complacent because we felt like we had so much power in the relationship. My role was liaisoning with the CIO and specifically talking about business needs, business requirements for the system. So we were setting up a council to hear from different organizations within that agency about what they need. And every time I went to meet with her, coming out of her office, usually 5 or 10 minutes into the time that I was supposed to be meeting with her, was a partner from a different consulting firm, a consulting firm who had absolutely no business there. They might have owned one or two very small applications. And it frustrated me to no end. I couldn't figure out why this person was constantly there talking to the CIO. They didn't have any reason to be there, right? And sure enough, when it came time to renew, when they went back out for proposals to refresh the systems, this other company came in and swept up a massive modernization program because they had been consistently with that client, engaging and investing their time and energy in talking about the future. And mostly what I was in there talking to her about was the present and then sometimes the past. Right? So that consistent, regular contact is vital. Secondly, bring something of personal, not private, value to them. This requires you to really understand what's important to them and where they are in their situation and in their work experience. You've got to get in there and bring something that is going to help them think about something differently, recognize them in some way. If it's something that brings them to the table and willing to have a conversation. You can go to our website, and if you search on Bring a Risky Gift, BARG, right? Bring a Risky Gift. It's a great technique to figure out how to engage with someone that really gets their attention and brings them to the table. The third way to stay in touch is, and this is especially for those of you who are working in complex organizations or organizations where you have a portfolio of projects and you're thinking about institutional relationships. Right? All trust relationships are personal. Usually companies will have a single program manager or account manager who has the primary relationship management tag pinned to their lapel, right? The mindset shift around here is to recognize that the role of relationship manager is just that. It is about managing the relationship. It does not mean that the onus falls on us alone to build that relationship. Now, the good side of that is that it means that everything within your organization is available to you to continue bringing value to that client. Right? You can always make an introduction to someone else. Hey, you know, we talked once about this challenge you're having. Well, I've got a guy who just went through that with a different client. I'd love to connect the two of you together and see if he can help forward the thinking in this area, right? You become, rather than a gatekeeper holding the burden like Atlas, holding the weight of the world on your shoulders, you become an enabler and a door opener to really bring everything that your organization has into this client's purview. right? Now, the flip side of that too is you need to be willing to advocate on behalf of your client throughout your own firm. You need to be willing to share what you know about the client to make those introductions easier, to help other people within your organization understand how they can bring value to your client. And throughout it all, number one needs to be an eye on the relationship that you have with the customer. It's not just, here's a business card to my colleague, good luck. It's managing that relationship, managing the introduction, probably sitting through at least the first meeting or staying in the meetings until you have confidence that your relationship with your customer is being honored. Now I'm going to pause. I haven't taken a breath in about 15 minutes, it feels. So I just want to do a quick check. We've got a lot of, I love what happens in the chat in the background. We've got a lot of things happening here. Tracy had a question about how to speak to how internal consultants approach this, right? And Tracy, I'm going to go ahead before we get to our last topic. Can you give a little more information about what you're thinking? Either come off mute and chat or just add more information into the chat.
Yeah, sure. So I work at the enterprise level, and so I don't have, so our HR business partners are actually within the line, and they have that day-to-day relationship. So I'll get called in to do something, internal OT consultant. So so just trying to get a sense of, I'm not necessarily going out and trying to sell my work. I'm also, I am my own department. So there's also a capacity issue. So I was just kind of curious about what would be different in terms of, why and when, how often should somebody internally be going back? I mean, sometimes for me, it is curiosity. I'd like to know if they've made progress, but I also don't want to be nagging them. So I was just kind of curious from that perspective, because I'm not necessarily looking to build my business, but I am trying to make sure that I'm still available if they have ongoing, challenges or needs of support to get to their results. Does that help explain?
It does. It does. And I saw Charlie's response to you, and far be it for me to disagree with the author of the book. I'm kidding, Charlie. I think he nailed it. I don't know that it is really any different. And in fact, I think it's a lot easier for internal consultants because you have so much more in common, right? So you know a lot more about what's happening in their business than you do with an external client. And so to me, it's even easier, just especially in an HR organization, to pick up the phone or to swing by a desk back when we were all in person, right? And just say, hey, yeah, I know this is happening in the business. What's going on with you, right? And there's a tendency to want to follow up any question like that with, and how can I help? And I liken it, my husband did it to me just this morning. What was it that I did? Oh, I got up this morning and I looked at my phone and the battery was dead. I said, rats, I meant to put my phone on the charger before I went to sleep last night, and now my battery is dead. And he turned around and said, well, you can always plug it in, it'll charge faster, right? And I was like, do you think I don't know that I can plug my phone in? Right. So we do have this tendency to want to help. And so we do what we call jumping to solution. And I think that's one of the big risks for an internal consultant is to be able to have that conversation to keep the relationship alive without immediately diving into that. And how can I help you? Right. Because how can I help you draws the attention back to me versus just, hey, how's it going? Keeping it on them. Does that help, Tracy?
That does, thank you. And I missed Charlie's response, so I got that too now, thanks.
Yeah, Charlie's, obviously he's been doing this a little longer than I have too. All right, so if you have questions, go ahead and type them into the chat if things have come to mind. And I'm gonna cover one last piece of information and then we're gonna have a few minutes for Q&A. So I just wanna, I forgot about this one. This is gonna be good. So I want to get you guys thinking about this. So call to mind a past client, right? Somebody that you haven't reached out to in at least 6 months, with whom you want to re-engage, whether because you need to or because you really want to, right? And then think, what do you tell yourself about why you haven't reached out? It's been 6 months. What's been holding you back? And go ahead and chat that. Just the first thing that pops into your mind. Why don't you reach out, or why haven't you reached out? Let's see what we've got. Yeah. Perfect. Awkward. David, I love it. Yeah. Awkward. They're busy. They don't want to hear from me. I don't want to bother them. Why would they want to hear what I have to say? Believe me, in my new role with Trusted Advisor Associates, I grapple with that one on a daily basis. Don't want to waste their time. Right? You want to be relevant to them. They'll think I'm trying to sell them something. Oh, Mike, I love it that you brought this up. I'm embarrassed that I haven't stayed in touch, right? These are all things, the stuff that goes on in our head that makes it feel so difficult to stay in touch with a past client. And you'll notice a lot of them have to do with our own self-orientation. Right? So what do you do to revive a stalled relationship? Here are 2 simple steps. The first one is you need to acknowledge it. In other words, you have to be the one who's willing to take the first step. Now, there are some keys about how you acknowledge it that are really important to this. Number 1, you need to understand your motives. Why are you trying to revive the stalled relationship? If it's just because you know there's a big ask coming down the pike in 2 months, you're about to go out to them with a marketing campaign and you want to kind of warm up the water a little bit, that's not all that much better than just reaching out to them after not having spoken to them, right? Or if you're trying to assuage your guilt because you know you should have been reaching out to them. Understand your motives and challenge yourself. Open up your aperture and think about why you're really reaching out to the person, and try to be the most genuine and authentic trusted advisor that you can be. Secondly, manage your self-orientation. Because we have all of these thoughts getting in our way and inhibiting us, it can be very difficult to take that step. Reach out, send the email. They're not going to want to hear from me. What if they don't respond, right? That's one of the big bugaboos in my world. So you've got to get control and understand what's holding you back to be able to overcome that. A great technique that we offer is name it and claim it. It's a way of saying hard truths that makes it feel less risky for you to have what could be a difficult conversation. Right? And then third, use the right bandwidth. If it's a really thorny issue, or you have a big ask and it has been a while since you reached out to them, a phone call might be better than email. If it's somebody who prefers to hear from you on chat, go ahead and send them a quick text, right? But understand what makes sense, both given the situation and the preferences of the other person, and use that bandwidth. Now, the second step to reviving a stalled relationship is up the ante, especially if you've given something, you've sent something to them, you've offered them something, and you haven't heard anything in return. If you're managing your self-orientation, even though your brain is probably going to, they just don't want to hear from me, or maybe I offended them, the more likely prospect is that they're busy. Your email got lost in the spam filter. Your email got buried because they have so much stuff coming into their box. They did like what you sent, and they set it aside to think about it for a little while before getting back to you. There's a whole realm of possibilities on this, right? One thing you can do by upping the ante is you can reframe the problem statement. You can come back to them and say, I realize I sent you something. We were talking about this a few months ago, and I didn't hear back from you. After more thought, right? Remember early on, reinvesting or investing your time. After more thought, I realized here's an even more valuable opportunity for us. Right now, you're upping the stakes a little bit to make it more appealing for them to reconnect. Secondly, you have to be willing to disengage from the old issue, whether it's something that made the ongoing relationship a challenge, you left with a bad taste in your mouth, or if it's something that they weren't responsive to you. Again, managing your self-orientation, let the past be in the past where it belongs. Make it easy for them to gracefully step past what they are probably feeling awkward and ashamed of, which is not getting back to you, and move forward into this new opportunity together. And then finally, be there with them and engage in that new opportunity. And again, it's not just changing the words about what it is that you brought to the table. It is really deepening your understanding and the value that you can bring to them, right? 2 simple steps: acknowledge and up the ante. And again, like everything with trust, simple does not always mean easy. The good news is that the risk that's required to re-engage with your clients is far less than the risk of the relationship ending without some kind of closure or without some kind of path forward. All right, now I realize that I've taken us up through our Q&A time, and I only took 1 question in that whole thing. This was a bigger topic than I thought when I built the deck. Does anyone have questions that they want to bring up? Think about that. Go ahead and enter them into the chat if you have any questions. In the meantime, give a moment to what we've talked about for the past 40 minutes. And I'd love to hear from you. What is your biggest takeaway from our time together? So pull that chat back up. Don't overthink it. A couple of words or phrases. Uh-oh, I've got myself off into a different place here. Sorry, I'm coming back to you. Okay, a couple words or phrases. What's your biggest takeaway from our time together? Thanks, Charlie. Thanks, Carla. Get over yourself. I love it. Hey, Tracy Amos, I will get to that question in just a minute if you can hang in there. Engaging regular contact. Other takeaways. Go ahead and keep that coming in. In the meantime, hey, Vicki, let's just do a quick poll, kind of a thumbs up and thumbs down. If you don't mind giving us your time for another 30 seconds. Was this webinar helpful? I know I've got you doing 2 things at once, chatting and texting, or chatting and polling. Let's give us 5 more seconds. All right. Thank you very much for giving us your feedback. Let's go on to the Q&A portion. Now, for those of you who are still stuck in your annotate mode, go ahead and push your cursor all the way to the top of the screen and pull down that, get that annotate menu back up and hit the red X on the side of it. That'll get you out of there. I'm going to stop sharing right now. Well, actually, you know what I'm going to do first? I'm going to do this. Just a few resources for you. And these will all, I'll give you links to all this stuff in the follow-up email. I do want to point out that next month on July 13th, Kees van Meeuwen, who is one of our delivery associates based in Amsterdam, is going to be talking about accelerating client trust, right? And we'll give you more information on that. Now I'm going to stop sharing the screen and open for questions. If you have a question, feel free to come off mute. Please put your camera on if you want to ask any questions. And as I said, I'll stay on a little bit longer. I know we've gone a bit long already. Oh dear. Getting myself bollocksed up. I know one question had come in, and it was from another Tracy, building on my Homeland Security example and the question comment from Tracy Draper. Thoughts or ideas on how to respect organizational roles and responsibilities. For example, we have frontline engagers doing the execution and delivery, and we are relationship managers. It's a great question, Tracy, and it's something that anybody who has ever been on a large client program has bounced into at some point. And I think the answer is really to look at it twofold And remember that trust is personal, right? So as the person responsible for managing the client relationship, if you're talking about the relationship management person, it is vital for you to advocate for the client's best interest within your organization. And that means within your team as well, right? And just like, I'm going to use an example, I don't mean to be trite, but I think it resonates for a lot of people. Just like a parent does things that are in the best interest of their children in the sense of advocating for their children. For example, acting as an intermediary when there's an issue at school, or engaging with coaches and troop leaders, for example, if they're in the Scouts or some other organization, right? It is your role as a relationship manager to have your client's best interest at heart and always be aware of what's happening, not only with your program team, but also the other opportunities that you can bring to your client, right? So there's that aspect of it. The second aspect of it is, again, because trust is personal, you need to work the relationships with those other people in your organization who are engaging with the client, not in a sense of controlling them, but in a sense of understanding everything that your client is being exposed to and building the trust with your own team members. I'll use that as a very loose team, so that they feel more comfortable sharing with you when they have information that may impact the program or your client relationships, and that they feel comfortable, they understand more, right? They have context when they're engaging with the customer. I used to always laugh because I would get questions from clients all the time about projects that I had nothing to do with, but that my firm was managing. I used to say, they think we're the Borg. They expect us all to know everything about everything going on there. And I realize that's a dated reference for some of you earlier career folks. Tracy Amos, does that scratch the itch on that?
Yes, it does. And unfortunately, I have to drop. There was a follow-up question, but I'll follow up offline with you on that. Thank you so much for
Please
the
do.
opportunity to attend today.
Thanks, Tracy. Thank you for joining us. All right. I see another bunch of folks have stayed on. Please feel free to come off mute if you have any questions.
Noelle, Anthony had a question a little while back
Can you read it to me?
about, yes, most clients would prefer free services advisory due to personal connection over time than paying for professional advice. How can I deal with this type of situation?
Let me go back to that. Oh, okay, Anthony. Due to personal connection over time than paying for professional advice. You know, that's, is Anthony still on the line? Yes. So Anthony, you know, I think there are a couple of things to look at here. One is to really understand the concept of free. Right? If somebody is really expecting you to give them for free what you get paid to do, that's not a trust relationship. That is being taken advantage of. And in that case, it is simply incumbent on you, with an eye towards maintaining the relationship, to be able to be firm about what you get paid to do and then hold firm to that. Now, the other aspect of what does free mean is really getting clear with yourself what they're buying from you. A lot of times it's easy to think that I can't give away my ideas, or I can't share with someone how to do this, because then they'll go off and do it themselves and I will no longer have the opportunity to get paid. And in fact, most of the time there's a reason that they aren't doing it beyond they don't know what to do. They want somebody external to come in because they're looking for an objective perspective, or they're looking for someone else to do it that has a different skill set from what they've developed and maintained in there. So if you're being asked to give away something for free and it is truly what you get paid for, it's up to you to reinforce the boundaries of the relationship. And don't be embarrassed about it. You would never hire, you would never go to the grocery store and, because you're friends with the checkout clerk, expect them to give you your groceries for free, right? That's not the way it works. And so a lot of that has to do with your own self-orientation and getting comfortable in saying no to something that you're being asked to provide that's outside what your pricing is. Name it and claim it, which I mentioned earlier, is a great technique. And it's all about understanding what's making it uncomfortable for you and then turning that into a caveat. You can say something like, look, at the risk of losing your business, that's what I get paid to do. And if we want to move forward, I'm more than happy to scope something out for you within the guidelines of my pricing. Does that help, Anthony?
Yes, in a bit, it actually helps. But usually, the way it's been operated over here in where I am, West Africa, Nigeria, is the fact that the moment they sign up as a trust. There's a trust relationship between the settler and yourself as a trustee. Subsequently, what they do is whatever professional advice they need, they're not willing to pay. They believe I've done the initial sign off. We've actually established a relationship over time, and for you to have a retainer, you need to sometimes give professional. You need to often give professional advice when they call you outside, not necessarily pay you per hour or per few minutes they sit down with you. They believe, after all, yes, I have a retainer fee, I have a relationship with your firm, and you should be there as my advisor. So they oftentimes, for you to keep getting a referral, for you to get a referral from them, they expect you to be able to offer free advisory after the initial sign off. Well, if you don't offer free advisory, they would definitely not recommend somebody else to you, believing the fact that whatever time they sit down with you, they're not going to come back because you're going to charge them. You keep charging them for per hour for professional fee. So that's the angle I'm looking at things from.
Yeah, that's a tough one, right? Because it sounds like you're feeling put in a quid pro quo situation. If you don't give me something for free, I will withhold referrals and bringing others. Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it's peculiar to us here in our part of the world where you
Okay.
just the best way you get referrals is when people see that yes, it's not more than for each time you seek my advisory role, and you get paid off. No, oftentimes after the initial payoff, they believe a relationship is established. So you keep anytime they need your professional service, they just call you. I think I'm getting confused about this. I'm having issues. What can you say about it? And the best you give, they say, okay, I'm satisfied. I think I can recommend my friend to you. But once you say no, I'm going to earn a fee for that. There are a lot of competitors. So there's always the choice of don't go there. Anytime you get there, you get paid for it. So rather than choose you, they will go for somebody else.
Yeah.
Like so that gives that limits you in a way. So often for you to retain that relationship, for you to be able to have access to them, for you to be able to sell more of your product to them, if you have a new product coming up, if you have a new product, let me use the word product, if you have a new product coming up, oftentimes you've been able to provide professional service, free pro bono service to them. So they trust you to that point that okay, yes, you've actually done a lot of pro bono to me, pro bono service for me. So yes, this is my own pay time. This is the time to pay you back for the pro bono service you've been doing. Unlike when you keep charging them for every advisory role.
Right. Yeah, Anthony, I think that there are a couple of things at play there. One is Paul Knight made a great comment in here, a suggestion that says, really get clear on here's what I can do for free and here's what I need to charge for. And then stick to that. Being willing to be consistent and stand up for yourself will garner much more respect than somebody who's always willing to give things away and it changes every time. Right? Because when you start giving something away or you give into the pressure of them saying that somebody else will give that to me for free, then you're on that slippery slope. They'll just, it's almost like being blackmailed. They'll just keep coming back to you for more and more money or for more and more free advice. So get very clear on where your boundary sits. The other thing is really being clear with yourself on what's happening. if you are giving away free professional advice and you're doing it because it's a marketing potential, talk about it in those terms. There's a great chapter in the Trusted Advisor Field Book, and I know we're over time and I'm going to have to run here, but there's a great chapter in the Trusted Advisor Field Book. I don't know off the top of my head, but Vicki, will you make a note for me to look for this? For dealing with untrustworthy people is the title of the chapter.
Yes,
that's
I
got
will.
Thanks, Vicki. And it's got a really great, it's a great like multi-step process for how do you decide how to resolve this? And the answer may be that you have to give up that business or you need to walk away from it. Without a lot more detail about specific instances, kind of those are the high level tips that I would say. Is that helpful, Anthony?
Very, very helpful. Thank you so much. I
Okay,
really
great.
enjoyed that.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank
All right,
you.
we're afternoon. If there's one more question here, I'll take it. Is it Vamo? I see a check mark. Did you want to ask a question? All right. Okay, I think that's it for questions. Thank you, everybody, for staying and for staying long. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day, great afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are in the world. And we'll see you next month. Take care.